Welcome to Evean HaEzer Halacha series. We are in Siman 1 in Halacha number 10 in the Pitchit Teshuvah for number 20. That's Siman Aleph Halacha Yud Pitchit Teshuvah Ot Chaf. This will be part 16 of the class. In Evean HaEzer in Siman Aleph in Halacha Yud, we started speaking about where the Shulchan Aruch stated V'lo hichrim ela ad sov ha'elef ha'chamishim, that the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom of not marrying two women, it was only applicable until the end of 5,000th year. Came the Rama said no. And nevertheless, even though the 5,000 years are already up, now we are moving into the 6,000th year. Nevertheless, came the Rama and he says, and nevertheless, Bechol midinot elu, in all of these cities, hatakana, the institution, vahaminhag, and the custom, b'mekomo omed, it stands in its place. Ve'en nosi'in shtei nashim, and one is not allowed to get married to two women. Ve'kofin becharamot v'nidu'in, mi shover v'noseh beit nashim legaresh achad mehem. And we have to enforce excommunication. Cherem and nidu, they are form of excommunications. We have to enforce excommunication on one who transgresses and marries two women in order for him to go ahead and divorce one of them. A guy is not allowed to be married to two women simultaneously. Came the Bash and the Cham. The Bash says in Od Chaf Dalet and the Cham in Od Yud Chet. They both have the same opinion when it comes to Legaresh Achad Mehem. When it says you have to divorce one of them, which one? Am I divorcing the first wife or am I divorcing the second wife? Comes the Bash and the Cham holds the same opinion. Hainu Hashniya Chayav Legaresh. Which means to say the second one he's obligated to divorce, unless the first one wants to accept the divorce willingly. If the first one is fine, with the get, if she also wants it, with her consent, he's allowed to go ahead and divorce her, and he's able to stay with the second wife. Otherwise, Rabotai, if the first one does not consent to getting divorced, then he's obligated to divorce the second wife. So comes the Rama is teaching us today like this, that the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom of not marrying two women is still applicable today. And he explains, if anyone went ahead and he did get married to two women, number one, he transgressed the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom, which stated clearly you're not allowed to marry two women. But not only that, comes the Rama says, Vekofin becharamot v'nidu'in, we have to enforce forms of excommunication, legaresh achad mehem, so that he should divorce one of them. Which one? The second one, unless the first one wants the divorce. Now, on this word, legaresh achad mehem, that's what the Pitchit Teshuvah is going to go on. In Od Chaf, you see right over Od Chaf, legaresh achad mehem. He begins, I'm Bit Teshuvah Noda B'Yehuda. Look into the responsa in the Noda B'Yehuda, Tanina in the second volume, Siman Tzadik, chapter 90, Shekatav, that he wrote, the Knesset HaGedolah Siman said that the Knesset HaGedolah in this chapter, Behagaot Beit Yosef Otet, in the amendments to the Beit Yosef in Otet, Hevi Harbe Poskim. Rabotai, listen how beautiful this is. Oh, something just reminded me. Give me 1 second. 1 second, Rabotai. Somebody texted me names. Just give me 1 second, guys. Let's do Refuah Shalema. Okay, so Refuah Shalema for Chaim Rachamim ben Larissa Sarah. I don't know who they are, but they're not doing very well, so let's have them in mind. And also another person, it's a girl, Katya Karen Or Bat Lena Leo. Again, I'm not sure who this is, but the students in my class said, Rabbi, we need to learn for them, we need to daven for them. It's Chas Hashem Lolin, Rabotai, it's not good news, nobody should ever know of this, but they should, Bezrat Hashem, have complete Refuah Shalema. Okay. So, comes the Knesset HaGedolah, and he says like this, and he brought in the name of many poskim, Hevi Harbe Poskim, he brought many poskim, Ubechalalam Maran Beit Yosef, and included in them was Maran the Beit Yosef himself, Beit Teshuvah Siman Yudalet, in the response in chapter 14, Umehar Chash Siman Memvav, and he also quoted the Maharchash in Siman Mevav. Listen what they say. Shegezeret Rabbeinu Gershom Me'or HaGolah, the decree of Rabbeinu Gershom, the light of exile, Lo haya rak al techilat hanisuin. This is beautiful. It was only at the beginning of marriage. Rabotai, listen to what they are saying. The Knesset HaGedolah is bringing many poskim. Included in them was the Beit Yosef and the Maharchash. And he says like this: when Rabbeinu Gershom Me'or HaGolah, when he made the ban that one is not allowed to marry two women, that's only initially. Lechatchila, he's not allowed to marry. For example, Reuven is married to Sarah, and now he saw another girl, I don't know, Leah, and he wants to also marry her. We're going to tell him, listen, you're not allowed to marry. You can't marry. That's what the Rabbeinu Gershom says. You're not allowed to marry the second woman. However, he says, V'im in the red, V'im avar. But if he went already against the words of Rabbeinu Gershom and he married a second woman, V'im avar v'nasan. If he went and he got married, Shuv ein kofin oto lehoti. You no longer are able to force him to take out his wife. Meaning you are no longer able to force him to divorce his wife. Rabotai, do you hear what's going on? I don't know. Rabotai, watch this for a second. Over here we said, over here the Ramah clearly states, you must divorce one of them. You have to use all forms of excommunication to threaten the guy that he has to divorce one of them. If not, we're excommunicating him. Comes the Knesset Gedolah, he says no. Comes the Knesset Gedolah, and he quotes a lot of poskim, and included in them is the Beit Yosef, and then also the Maharchash. And he says no, that the Gezerah of Rabbeinu Gershom Me'or HaGolah, Lo haya rak al tichlat hanusin. The decree, the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom, was only on the beginning of the marriage process. Only in the beginning. If a guy wants to get married in the beginning, we tell him you're not allowed to get married because that's the ban. But v'im avad, what happens if he didn't listen to the ban? And he went and he did do it, be the after the fact, Venasan, he did get married, Shuv en kofin oto lehoti. We no longer are able to force him to divorce his wife. Ravotai, do you see what this Pitchit Shur just did? It just took the halacha of the Ramah and went clearly against it. VCM, and he concluded, and the Knesset Gedolah concluded, Ulefize, and according to this, Mashe Katav Nemuki Yosef, this is what the Nemuki Yosef said, because you have to understand the Nemuki Yosef, he says, V'chayavim lachov al hacherem. A person is obligated to enforce the ban. So when you think, when you look at that language, what does it mean? A person is obligated to enforce the ban. So in your mind, you could understand this. What does it mean that a person is obligated to enforce the ban? That means initially, before marrying the second woman, and I could even understand it, that even after he married the second woman, you still have to enforce the ban and you have to divorce them. No. Comes one second, guys. Comes the Knesset Gedolah, says, no. When he says v'chayavim lechov al hacherem, that you are obligated to enforce the ban, you know what that he's speaking about? Beba lisa lechatchila ka'amar. The Nemuki Yosef was speaking about initially getting married to a woman. Rabotai, listen to this very carefully. Ma shekatav Nemuki Yosef v'chayavim lechov al hacherem, that you are obligated to enforce the cherem, that specifically, it's talking about specifically, beba, it's coming on. Lisa lechatchila, it's coming on if a person wants to get married initially to a woman, yeah, you gotta enforce the ban. But I could understand that also b'di'evet if it already did happen. He says, no, if you want to learn like that, I'll tell you what it really means. Inami, alternatively, I'll give you another understanding of the Nemuki Yosef. Afilu ben nasa, even if he went ahead and he did get married to a second woman, don't think the Nemuki Yosef is telling you that you have to go ahead and you have to enforce the ban by divorcing them. No. What he says is, you only means you have to enforce. This is what you have to enforce. To call him a sinner, and to excommunicate him on the fact that he transgressed the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom, the light of exile. That's all. But not to chas v'shalom force him to divorce his wife. So according to this, he's able to have two wives. Again, I'm not telling you it's allowed, But if he did do it, comes the Knesset Gedola, and he tells you can stay with her. Rabotai, I want to read one more time. Let me go through and through without explaining it. Just see the sequence of events. The Knesset Gedola Siman Zebe Haga od Beit Yosef od Ted hevi harbe poskim. He brought many poskim. Ubichlala Maran Beit Yosef Beteshuva Siman Yudalet. He brought the Beit Yosef in the response to Yudalet. Umaharchash Siman Memvav. Shegezeret Rabbeinu Gershom me'or hagolaha. The decree of Rabbeinu Gershom, the light of exile. Lo yarak al tichilat anisun. It was only on the beginning process of getting married to a second wife. However, ve'im avar, but if he did transgress on the ban, ve'nasan, he did get married to the second woman, shuv en kofin oto leoti. We no longer are able to force him to divorce the second woman. V'siyem, and he concluded, ulifize, according to what the Knesset Gedolah just said on top, Mashikata Nemuki Yosef, I could go ahead and I could play around with the words of the Nemuki Yosef. When he says, V'chayavim lachov al hacherim, when it said that you are obligated to enforce the ban, you would have thought to say that initially he's not allowed to have a second wife, and if he did get a second wife, they have to divorce. Comes to Beit Yosef and he says, no. When he says that you are obligated to enforce the ban, Babali Saleh is coming to teach you that if he wants to marry the woman initially, that's what it's speaking about. That initially, if the guy wants to marry a second wife, we're going to enforce the ban. We're going to say it's a sur. Alternatively, I'll tell you, Afilu benasai, even if he did get married, you know how you have to enforce the ban? To call him a sinner. And to excommunicate him. On the fact that he transgressed the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom. But to come and tell me that, we have to enforce the excommunications in order for him to divorce one of them? No. The Knesset Gedolah does not agree with that. Rabotai, the Knesset Gedolah says, no, you can't do that, Rabotai. No, but look what he said. He brought many poskim. And amongst them was the Beit Yosef and the Maharchash. So it's not so pashut, but the Ramah says differently. Now listen what he says over here clearly in the red, right over here, in the highlighted red area, right over here. Ube'ot yud bet katav, and in ot yud bet he wrote, the Knesset Gedolah. Ki Moshe en, Rabotai, look how clear this is. Ki Moshe en kofin oto ligaresh hashniya. Whoa. Just like you can force the guy to divorce the second one, the second wife. Hachinami, so too. En kofin oto ligaresh harishona. Im hi tertze bigrushin. You can't force him to divorce the first wife if she wants the divorce. Rabotai, ad kan lashon, up to here is the language of the Nod Yehuda that is quoting the Knesset Gedolah. This is unbelievable, Rabotai. Comes to Knesset Gedolah and he tells you, he clearly disagrees with the Ramah. The Ramah clearly says you have to force the guy, you have to basically threaten, you have to put excommunications on him, cherem and nidu, whatever it takes, you have to put on the guy until he's going to divorce one of them. No, comes the Knesset Gedolah says, no, what are you talking about? No, what do you mean? No, you don't force. For what? Yeah, the Cherem Beit Gershom is applicable. Go ahead. Call him a sinner, put excommunication on him, but you can't force him to divorce one of the women. Why is it fair to the second one and not the first one? Or how is it fair to the first one and not the second one? Who is he going to divorce? Rabotai, who is he going to divorce? Yeah, he's a sinner. Excommunicate him. But how is it fair to the other two women? If he divorces the second one, it's not fair to the first one. No, the other way. If he divorces the second one, how is it fair to her? If he divorces the first one, how is it fair to her? So according to the Knesset Gedolah, he can keep both of them. The only thing is, he transgressed the ban. You know, we have this in Halacha, lechatchila b'di'evid. Right? Lechatchila, we want you to do one thing. B'di'evid, if you didn't do it, it's okay post facto. I'll give you one example. Lechatchila, we want people to say the Kriya Shema of the Magen Avraham time. That's the best way to do it, because Shema is midoraita. You didn't do it, b'di'evid, you could rely on the Gaon Mevilna. Not the end of the world. But over here, it's a little bit different. I'm just giving that example. But over here, it's worse because he's really doing an Aveira because he went against the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom. I could tell you also that he can rely on the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch clearly stated, right over here, that the ban is already no longer applicable. So you could also rely on that. Okay. Rabotai, look how beautiful Torah is. Look how beautiful Torah is. Nothing Rabboisai comes to learning Torah. Nothing comes close to learning Torah. Okay. I got to read that again. I got to read that again one more time. ובאות י"ב כתב, and in אות י"ב, the כנסת הגדול wrote, כמו שאין כופין אותו לגרש. השנייה, just like you don't force the guy to divorce the second wife, החינמי, so too, אין כופין אותו לגרש הראשונה אם היא תרצה בגירושין. You can't force the guy to divorce the first wife if she wants the divorce. Rabotai, that's nuts. That's nuts. Okay, let's continue. Continues the Noda Yehuda. Since the Noda Yehuda is the one that brought the Knesset Gedolah, now he's going to attack him. Vehuzal. Who's the Vehuzal? Right? Vehuzal, and he is Zechrein Levracha, Katav, and he wrote, right? A lot of times you can also learn, by the way, where is this? Okay, that's okay. Vehuzal. I wanted to show you something right over here. Right here. It says, I'm Betushuad Noda Yehuda Tanin, right? Right here, this one. I'm Betushuad Noda Yehuda Tanin. Since the Pitchet Shuv quoted the Noda Yehuda Tanin, right? And he told us over there that the Noda Yehuda Tanin, the Noda Yehuda in the second volume, he brought the Knesset Gedolah. So now it says over here Vehuzal. When it says over here Vehuzal, and the Noda Yehuda himself, Katav Alav, he wrote on him, Shedat Achronim, the opinion of the later generation rabbis, Shalom, our later generation rabbis, Einoken, it's not so. It's not so. It's not like the Knesset Gedolah. Yeah, you might have brought me Arbe Poskim. You might have brought me the Beit Yosef himself. You might have even brought me the Maharchash. No problem. But our later generation rabbis don't hold of those opinions. He says, I'm Bebe Shmuel, Siman Zeh, look into the Bebe Shmuel in the Siman, Sov Siv Katan Gimel, in the end, towards the end of Siv Katan Gimel, Shekadav, that he wrote. Listen to what he says, clearly. If you guys remember, let me bring you guys back over here 1 second. Let me just show you this. If you guys remember, we spoke about Ubemakom, the Ramah brought this down, still in Siman Aleph and Halacha Yud. Ubemakom she'ena rishona bad girushin, in a place where the first wife is not divorceable. Kigon she for example, she lost her mind, she went insane. Yesh lahakel lahatir lo lisacheret. You could be lenient to allow him to marry another woman. But we did see in the Bash, let me just see which Od that was. In the Bash, in Od Chav Gimel. In Dibra Matchil Kagon Shenishtatet. We did see in the Bash, he says over there, he has to give over the get document to somebody else when she's going to be healthy. So we see over here clearly that as long as the first one is not divorceable, for example, she lost her mind, you can't divorce her because she has to be in the right state of mind. She has to want to accept the get. So from here we want to learn, right over here he says, so 1 second, he says, look, he says clearly, let's do this one more time. Ve'uzal katav alav, and he, the Noda Yehuda wrote on him, Shedat Achronim Shalom, our later generation rabbis, Enuken, their opinion is not so like that. It's not like you, the Knesset Gedolah. Ayin Bebeit Shmuel Siman Zeh Sof Siv Katan Gimel. Oh, I don't know why he says Siv Katan Gimel. It's supposed to be Siv Katan Chav Gimel. 1 second. Let me see something, guys. Yeah, you see that, Rabotai? He said this is a ta'ud, this is a mistake. Oh, it's good that I was able to catch on to this. Over here it says Siv Katan, it's not Siv Katan Gimel, it has to be Siv Katan Chav Gimel. If you look, Rabotai, that's why it's very important to learn the Pitchet Shuvah. You're not going to be able to see it from there. But if you look into Od Chav in the Pitchet Shuvah itself, you'll see right in the middle, it says over there Siv Katan Chav Gimel. Okay, Rabotai? Because that's where it's found. I'm surprised why it says Siv Katan Gimel. Okay. In any event, doesn't matter. So he said like this, I'm Bebe Shmuel, I'm Bebash, which is the Beit Shmuel, in Siv Katan Chav Gimel, not Siv Katan Gimel, Shekatav, that he wrote, that's the case I was speaking about, that where she lost her mind. After she's going to heal, after she's going to become sane, when she's going to be normal, what does the Bash say? Chayav, come on, Chayav ligaresh miyad. He's obligated to divorce immediately. In order for him not to be married to two women simultaneously, because remember, over there we spoke about in the Halacha and the Shulchan Aruch, that in a place where the first wife is not divorceable, for example, she lost her mind, we said you are able to be lenient and allow him to get married to another woman, so now he has another wife. So now let's say if you have Sarah and Leah. Sarah is the one who's insane, and Leah is normal. So now he's married to Leah. Comes the Bash and he tells you, Sivkat and Chav Gimel, that after she becomes normal, where do you go? After she becomes normal, Chayav Ligaresh, he's obligated to get divorced. Why? Miyad, immediately. Why? Because remember, he shouldn't have two wives, because right now he has two wives. So what do we see over here, Rabotai? What do we see over here? We see clearly from the Bash that he's obligated to get divorced. So how can the Knesset Gedolah say over here, She'en kofin oto ligaresh hashniya? Let's just stick to that. You don't have to go ahead and you're not allowed to, you don't force the guy to divorce the second one, to divorce the second wife. What does it mean you don't force? What do you mean you're allowed to allow them to be together? We see clearly you can't have two wives simultaneously. So Rabotai, over here in the Pitchit Teshuva itself, you see it's in brackets right over here. Right, you see this? Okay, Rabotai, right over here, right? If you guys can see it, I don't know if I'm able to do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. Oh, no, I'm not going to be able to do it. Okay. From this bracket, from the red right here, till this end of the bracket, this is the pin of the Pitchit Teshuva. It's not the pin of the Nodi Biuda. The Pitchit Teshuva himself asks a question. He says, any Yodei says, I don't know Madua, why lo hiskir divrei Rama bikan? Why he didn't bring the words of the Rama that we just saw over here? The mifurash behed that it explains openly, she kofin ligaresh. We clearly say you have to go ahead and you have to force, through excommunications to divorce him. V'im hurak. So one second. So Rabotai, now that's gonna be the answer. 1 second. So this is gonna be the answer. All right, let's do this. I'm able to do that. 1 second. Let's do this. Okay. So comes the Pitchit Teshuva and he's like this. Any Yodea, I don't know. Madu lo hiskir divrei Rama bikan. Why didn't he bring the words of the Rama from here? Right? Because what the Rama say over here? The Rama clearly stated. We say here vekofin ligaresh achamem. Basically, I'm just skimming the charamot v'nudiim. We force that he should divorce one of them. So why didn't the Nodi Yehuda just bring this? Why didn't he bring this? Why did he have to bring me the Bash? Why did he have to bring me a whole different teaching? Right? That's what he's saying. Any day, Madulo hiskir divrei Rama bikan. Why he didn't bring the words of the Rama over here? The Mefurish Behedi that explains openly, Shokofil Garesh, where it says clearly you have to divorce. We force him to divorce. Why did he have to go bring me a proof? Why do you have to bring me a proof from there? Why do you have to bring me a proof from the Bash where I have an earlier source from the Rama itself? The Rama clearly says you force him to divorce her. So why'd you have to tell me? Why'd you have to bring a proof from the Bash in Sivkat Chav Gimel where it says you're obligated to divorce her miyad after she becomes normal? Why? Why'd you have to bring? So again, that's the question of the Pitchit Teshuva himself. But he said maybe I'll tell you why. Ve'imu rag minhaga. If you want to tell me the reason why the Nodi Yehuda did not quote the Rama, because maybe it's only from a custom, because that's what the Rama said. The Rama said over here in the halacha, right? It's only a minhag. So maybe the divorcing to force the divorcement also only a minhag, but it's not halacha. But from the Bash, so therefore he says, so if it's only a custom to go ahead and force the guy to divorce the second wife, Gam divrei Bash, yesh lomar ken. So okay, good. So also by the Bash you could say the same thing, that when he says chayav legeresh miyad, that you are obligated to go ahead and divorce immediately in order for them not to be together. Meaning, in order for the guy not to have two wives simultaneously. Good. That's only from a custom. Okay, but he says maybe that's why he did not quote the Rama. All right. Okay, so let's go back over here, Rabotai. So comes the Nodi Yehuda and he says Shadat Achronim Shalom, our later generation rabbis, Enoken, it's not like the opinion of the Knesset Gedolah. Right, etc., etc. Like we saw, like it's written in the Bash, after the woman is sane, after she's normal, clearly states you are obligated to go ahead and divorce immediately. In order for him not to be married to two women simultaneously. And so too, mashma'ut kol chachmei hadarot b'medina zo. So too, the implication of all the great rabbis in this generation, in this city, their opinion is the same. You have to go ahead and you have to force the guy to divorce one of them. Because we are forced to learn that when it says in the Bash that he has to deposit the get in the hands of the shaliach at the time when he's permitted to marry another one. What was the whole purpose to deposit the get in the hands of the messenger? In order for him to be able to get married to another woman? That's in order that once she's going to be healthy, the shalich, the messenger, is going to be able, he's going to be ready to divorce immediately. Right? He says right over here, that the get should be ready to divorce immediately, once she becomes healthy. And it's explained from their words, the lav davka benasa be'isur. We're not speaking about over here in the situation where he went ahead and he married her in a prohibited way, and that's what we're going to tell you, that you have to force him to divorce one of them. No. Even if a guy went ahead and he got married in a permissible way to the second wife, how could that be? How can he get married to the second? What do you mean in a permissible way? So he says, Kigon, for example, al pi ed, through a witness, she ta'a oto, he misled him. Shemeta ishto, he said to him, your wife died, chas v'shalom lo leinu. So what did he do? We believe the witness. So what do we do? He said, okay, now you'll have to go get married. He went and he got a second wife. And out of nowhere, after 6 months, his wife shows up. Even over there, we're going to tell you, we force him to divorce one of the women, even not only in ways where he got married in a prohibited way, even in ways where he got married in a permissible way, still we're going to force him to divorce the second woman. Or the first woman if she wants the get. So he says over here, right? Even if he got married in a permissible way, for example, through a witness that misled him, Shemetai showed that he said that his wife died, Gam ken michuyav legaresh, so too he's obligated. He's obligated to divorce her, right over here, even when it's impermissible. So how can the Knesset Gedolah say that you don't have to force the guy to divorce one of them? So what's his proof that even in a permissible way you have to force him to divorce? So he says, I'll show you how. Since when a woman lost her mind, he gets married in a permissible way. Because we gave him the permission. What can we do? She's not in the right state of mind to accept the get. Even so, they wrote, he needs to divorce his wife immediately once she becomes healthy. Ad kan devarv ein sham. Up to here is the words, look over there. So comes the Nod Yehuda, the oldest, the Pitchet Shu quoted the Nod Yehuda. We see clearly over here that the Nod Yehuda is disagreeing with the Knesset Gedolah. The Knesset Gedolah says the Cherem Rabbeinu Gershom is only applicable lechatchila. And even if you want to say it's applicable after the fact, if he went out and he did get married to another woman, that's only to call him a sinner and to excommunicate him, but not coming to teach us that he's obligated to divorce one of them. Comes the Nod Yehuda, says chas v'shalom. Why? I'm happy you have all the other rabbis, but from our later generation rabbis, like we saw, clearly it states he is obligated to divorce one of the women in order for him not to have two wives simultaneously, because he's transgressing the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom. So that is the machloket. Vegam b'siman kuf chavav. He says also look into Siman kuf chavav. Ube'inin shekatav HaKnesset Gedolah, and this in regards to what the Knesset Gedolah wrote, she'en kofin oto legeresh harishona, right, when the Knesset Gedolah stated on top that we don't force him to divorce the first one, yeah, right, even if she wants, he says, Ein ma shekatav mizeh lekaman Siman kuf nudal siv alav siv katan hey. He says, look later on, what he wrote about this in Siman Kuf Nun Dalet in Halach Aleph in Siv Katan Hey. Just want to make sure Siv Katan Hey? Yeah, Siv Katan Hey. Okay. Rabotai, bottom line, we see over here a beautiful machloket between the Nod Yehuda against the Knesset Gedolah. Alright, I want to do this with you one more time, And then B'ezras Hashem, we're going to do the review in English. So let's do this one more time. I'm bit teshuva not the bihuda. Again, I'm going to read it without any explanations, and you'll see how beautiful Torah is once you have once you already understand it or understood it. I'm bit teshuva not the bihuda tanina. Siman tzadik shekatav. The Knesset Gedol Siman Zeh BeHaggaot Beit Yosef Oted Hevi Harbe Poskim. The Knesset Gedol brought many poskim. Ubichlalam Marana Beit Yosef. Included in them was the Marana Beit Yosef. Beit Teshuva Siman Yudalu Maharchash Siman Menvav. Shegezer Rabbeinu Gershom Me'or HaGolah Lo Haya Rak Al Tichilat Nisuin. The ban, the decree of the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom was only on the beginning of marriage. Ve'im Avar V'nasa Shuv En Kofin Oto Lohoti. But if he did transgress the ban and he got married, you are no longer able to force him to go ahead and divorce one of the women. V'siyem, and he concluded, Ulefizeh, according to this, this is what the Numuki Yosef wrote, that we are obligated to enforce the ban. You know what that means? He was speaking about when he's coming to marry the girl initially, we're going to enforce the ban that he's not allowed to marry the second girl. Inami, alternative, I'll give you another way to understand this. Afilu benasai, even if he went ahead and he got married to the second woman, how are you going to enforce the cherem? No problem. Limikre'a avariyana, to call him a sinner. Ulahachrimo, and to excommunicate him al shavar cherem Rabbeinu Gershom on the fact that he transgressed the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom, the light of exile. Ube'ot Yudbet katav, and in Ot Yudbet the Knesset Gedol wrote, Kemo she'en kofin oto, just like you are not able to force him, ligaresh hashniya, to divorce the second one. Hachinami, so too en kofin oto ligaresh harishono. So too you're not able to force him to divorce the first one, im hiter tze bigirshin, if she's going to want the divorce. Ad kan loshon. So we see from the Knesset Gedola that you are not allowed to force the guy after the fact to divorce one of the women. Vehu zal katav alav, and the Noda B'Yehuda wrote on the Knesset Gedola, shedat achronim shalanu, our later generation rabbis, eino ken, their opinion is not so. It's not like the Knesset Gedola. Ein bebeis Shmuel Siman Zeh Sof Sifkatan Chav Gimel shekatav acher shetatrapa, where he says that after a woman is normal, chayav legaresh miyad, he's obligated to divorce immediately, kedei shelo yeh lo shtei nashim, in order for him not to have two wives. And the Pirkei Teshuvah said, "Eni yodei madu lo hiskir divrei harama bikan." Why didn't he just bring the words of the Ramah? The mifur behedya shekofin legaresh, where it says clearly that you have to force the guy to divorce. So if you want to give the answer like this, and if you want to tell me the whole business of forcing the guy is only a custom, gam ken divrei Abash yesh lomar ken, so too by the words of the Beit Yosef, where he says chayav. Right, when he said chayav legaresh miyad, you could also say over there it's also a custom that he has to divorce his wife immediately. And so too, that is the implication of all the great rabbis in this generation in the city. That's why we were forced to deposit the get in the hands of the messenger. At the time we were going to allow him to get married to the second woman, so that the messenger should be ready to be able to divorce his wife, take him immediately, once she becomes sane. And it's explained from the words, the lav davga benasa be'isur, not necessary, not specifically if he married in a prohibited way, are we going to say that he has to divorce her. Even if he married in a permissible way, we're still going to tell you he's obligated to divorce one of the women. For example, al-pi ed, through a witness that misled him, saying that his wife died, and he went ahead and he got married to another woman, which was in a permissible way. So too he's obligated to go ahead and he's obligated to divorce one of the women. So we see over here that the guy is obligated to divorce the woman whether he married the second woman in a prohibited way or whether he married the second woman in a permissible way. How do we know in a permissible way he's also obligated to divorce her? Right, so since we spoke about when a woman loses her mind, he's able to get married in a permissible way. Even so, כתבו, they wrote, שצריך לגרש מיד כשתתרפא. He needs to divorce immediately once she is healthy. עד כאן דבר, אין שם, up to use the language, look over there. וגם בסימן ק"כ"ו, also look into סימן ק"כ"ו. ובעניין שכתב הכנס הגדול שאין כופין אותו לגרש הראשונה, אין מה שכתב מזה לכמה סימן קנ"ד סעיף א', סעיף קטן ה'. And in regards to what the Knesset Gadol wrote, that you cannot force him to divorce the first wife, even when she wants the divorce, says look in later on, in Siman Kuf in Halacha Aleph and Siv Katan Hey. Bottom line, Rabotai, we see from today's beautiful Pirchei Teshuvah that the Noder B'Yehuda learns that if a guy went ahead and he got married to a second woman, he's obligated to divorce one of them, depending. He's really obligated to divorce the second one, like we saw in the Bash and the Cham. However, if the first one accepts the divorce, if she's fine with it, he can divorce the first one and he can stay married to the second one. Okay? Now, Rabotai, that's the opinion of the Noder B'Yehuda? No. Came the Knesset Gadol, the Knesset Gadol said absolutely not. Yeah, lechatchila, we don't want him marrying a second woman because that's the ban. You can't have more than one wife. But if he did would be the Eved, you can't force him to divorce her. You can call him a sinner. You can excommunicate him because he did transgress on the ban of Rabbeinu Gershom, but you cannot force him to divorce his second wife. Let's see the review, Rabotai. Summary of Pirchei Teshuvah, Evean HaEzer, in chapter 1, Ot number 20 in the Pirchei Teshuvah. The discussion centers on the decree of Rabbeinu Gershom, which forbids a man from marrying more than one wife. Scope of Rabbeinu Gershom's decree. The Knesset Gadol, in citing many authorities, including the Beit Yosef and the Mahar Chash, explains that the Rabbeinu Gershom ban applies only to entering a second marriage initially. However, if one has already transgressed and married a second wife, he is not compelled to divorce her, though he's considered a sinner. View of later authorities. Later authorities disagreed with this lenient interpretation. The Beit Shmuel and of the subsection 3, I should actually put over number 23, right? Because that's what we saw now, 23. Rules that if the first wife recovers in a case where she was deprived of strength and he was permitted to remarry, he must divorce the second wife immediately so as not to have two wives. The supporting practice. This is evidenced by the practice that at the time permission to remarry was granted, the husband was required to deposit a get with a third party. This get would be ready to deliver to one wife immediately upon her recovery, preventing simultaneous marriage to two women. Application to permitted marriages. This obligation applies even if the second marriage was permitted, such as when the man mistakenly believed, based on valid testimony, that his first wife had died l'olam chas v'shalom. In all such cases, he must still divorce one wife to avoid being married to two women simultaneously. Reference to Knesset Gedolah. The Knesset Gedolah's view that one is not forced to divorce the first wife is also discussed later in Evean HaEzer, chapter 154, Halacha 1, Siv Katan 5. Bottom line, Rabotai, bottom line. While some early sources suggest that coercion to divorce is not applied once the second marriage occurred, the consensus of later authorities is stricter. A man may not remain married to two wives under any circumstance, and he must prepare in advance to give a get immediately when necessarily. Rabotai, have a great day. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.